Hey y'all, Lexi with Helix Stitchcraft here. I was tagged by Lori at Lori's Stories and Crochet in the crafty personality tag that was created by Christina at Bella Uncinetto. Sorry, at Bella Uncinetto. I will have the original video and the questions linked down below. Make sure you check that out and check out the original video. I will also link Lori's video and her answers to these questions. There's a series of 8 questions here. We are just going to jump right in, I guess. Let me see here. All right. Number 1. What is your crafty origin story? So as far back as I can remember, I have drawn. Earliest on I can remember, I remember drawing things like dresses, very elaborate wedding dresses, special occasion dresses. I've always primarily drawn people for some reason. That seems to be what I'm best at. Although I have learned over the years that I'm pretty good at looking at something and recreating, and I will show you an example of that here in a few minutes. I remember writing a lot of poetry with my best friend Juanice. I have always been pretty good at the creative writing and English classes in school and such. And when presented with a need to write something very articulately, I'm quite talented. I will own that. So writing has always been a thing. Drawing has always been a thing. I don't remember painting as much, but I do know that either 2 or 3 summers in a row, sorry, there's a car going by, I wrote an essay and earned my way into a class at Minot State University, where I grew up in North Dakota, in College for Kids. And I don't specifically remember what all classes I took through the college, but they were all art classes that I earned my way into. And the one I distinctly remember, we were doing polymer clay, primarily jewelry, earrings, and necklace pendants. I do really remember that. I remember using gold leaf for the first time in that class and being absolutely mesmerized. I began to pick up crochet somewhere between 11 and 13. I'm not sure when that was, but my grandmother taught me how to create a chain and then how to single crochet. And from there, I just made things up as I went along for years in just single crochet. I have some memory of making friendship bracelets and necklaces and such, and going door to door, knocking on. I grew up on an air base, so I remember going door to door and selling some of these bracelets and stuff. I've always just had a niche, I guess. I think it kind of runs in the family. My dad did a lot of woodworking, and I remember he made shelves and painted very elaborate southwestern scenes on these shelves that we used as decor in my family's home. I also remember finding drawings that he had done in his teens, graphite drawings of fish. He's an angler, and so I always thought it was adorable that he drew fish, and he drew them very, very well, very detailed. My mom has always kind of been a jack of all trades. She's especially good at quilting, and she's become very good in the last couple of years at knitting. And I know she has dabbled in many other things over the years. She's very crafty. She considers herself not terribly good at any one thing in particular, just kind of good at everything. So they both have a lot of natural crafting or artistic talent, and that definitely hit influenced, and I think is kind of in my blood in a way. Another big part of my origin story, the town that I grew up in, when I started high school, we moved to town off of the air base. And in town, in Minot, North Dakota, there was quite a elaborate art and punk scene. Um, we had a venue when I first started going to these venues. I went to the Liberty. Um, Weekends, there were shows all the time. There was art from local artists hung all over. Sorry, I'm outside and I'm feeling itchy. Um, Eventually, the Liberty burned down. And after I had moved to Minneapolis and then moved back to Minot, an old friend got a bunch of us together to talk about opening what ended up being the AMP, which stood for Artists, Musicians, and Performers. We made sure in this building that we had to not only have a stage for musicians, but to create space for poetry and a separate room that we had an art gallery in. Um, it's always been very, very important to me to embrace the arts. That is something that I very much share with my daughters. We have pretty much every art supply in my house you could think of, and then some. The girls know that when they break a toy, those broken pieces go to daddy so that he can create them into something new and amazing. We reuse a lot, um, and try to support our girls. I'm going to share the first picture I'm going to share. I'm going to pause and share a few pictures. The first picture I share here will be a portrait that my oldest and I did, where I drew one half of, let's say, the nose, and then she drew the other half of the nose. I drew one half of the mouth, and then she drew the other half of the mouth, and so on and so forth. And we created this portrait together. There's also a picture from several years ago, one of my very favorite pictures, where she told me she was painting her feelings. So those will be the first two pictures here, and then I'll share with you some of my other drawings and paintings. All right, so some of those drawings, like the graphite portrait of the boy, I drew that when I was 17. Um, the Petrify the Patriarchy was a painting from last summer. Um, the swirly orange and pinks and reds picture was just a couple months ago on a painting night with hubby. Um, I tend to just create from whatever. Um, Back to the questions. Question 2. What is your craft of choice and what does it say about your personality? My craft of choice is usually yarn related, crochet. I think that that says that I'm a pretty giving person. I think that that's what most fiber artists, crocheters, and knitters primarily find themselves doing with a lot that they create. We create to give, we create to share, we create to provide. Blankets, hats, whatever, some for donation, some for pleasure, some for gifts, some for I saw this yarn and it made me think of you. You know, it just depends. I think choosing yarn and creating the way that I do with that also says a little bit about um, how loud and colorful I am. Let's see. Question number 3. What is your favorite fiber and how does that influence the things that you make? Well, as far as yarn goes, acrylic yarn, um, I feel it's most forgiving, most versatile, most available. It allows you to just paint with yarn, whether you're using it to literally paint with yarn or you're using a hook and creating a fabric. It it makes it feel like I'm free to create. Um, Number four, if money was no object, would your fiber of choice be different? I will say absolutely. Primarily for environmental reasons. I think that using natural fibers would be ideal, right? Cotton, bamboo, wool, what have you, things that can return to the earth. Unfortunately, those things are quite expensive. And to be completely honest, each fiber, each medium, whether we're talking about just yarn or we're painting or woodworking or resin working or drawing or some sort of other creation, found object creations, what have you. Um, I think that it very much I use what the project calls for. So is money a factor? I mean, absolutely. I have my restrictions, but if the project absolutely needs a particular item, then I will do whatever I can to make that happen, right? Um, Number five, what is your favorite yarn weight or size or other crafty material, and how does that influence what you make? As far as yarn size goes, I prefer a sport or a DK. It's just what feels best in my hands. And I prefer my items, even my blankets, a lot of times to be a little less bulky than a 4+ weight creates as far as a fabric goes. Um, as far as another material, what other material is my favorite? Graphite primarily. I draw and I'm learning to be more comfortable with acrylic paint. Um, yeah, so those are probably my two other favorites, other than found objects. Found objects are really probably my favorite. Um, I'm going to pause here and share with you a few found objects, including some furniture that I remade. And yeah, here's some furniture and some found objects, as well as some of my light switch covers, some ukulele hangers, what have So at the end of that collection of pictures, there is also my bedroom door. My husband had handed me a box of paint colors, and I instantly imagined our bedroom and bathroom door. They're both painted that way, and they are side by side in that hallway. Um, he handed me the colors, and I was immediately thought it needed to be on those doors. So that's what happened. Excuse me, I'm still dealing with allergy issues. That last item was a belly cast I had done for my cousin. Um, the first belly cast I ever did. I did the casting and then I painted that for her first child. These are all things I just do whatever it is that I'm inspired to do at the time that I'm inspired to do it. That's just who I am, and that's what I've always done. Um, Question number 6. What would be the item you most want to make someday? As far as yarn goes, crochet, there is a crochet along that I want to find the pattern for. I believe it was called Something Magic. I don't remember off the top of my head who it was by, but I will include a picture here. There's also 2 patterns by Hooked on Sunshine, the whatchamacallit, as well as the Phoenix that I would like to do someday. And here's those. And then, of course, the ever elusive Sophie's Universe. I would like to do that. And also the Sacred Space. And here's. So there are those that I intend to do eventually, that I'm quite inspired by. Question 7. Who is your favorite designer and what does that say about the things that you like to craft? Well, I just shared a few favorite designers because I intend to do their designs, right? Aside from that, I will say Jennifer at Cinnamon Stitches. The way that she has designed the few tops that she's done tutorials for, um, and the way that she does her tutorials, she just speaks my language and has taught me things that I didn't understand before and helped me be able to create and become my own designer. So, thank you, Jennifer. Um, I don't, off the top of my head, know of many other designers. I'm quite fond of pretty much everything I see Crystal at Bag O' Day. I love all of her stitch tutorials and the way she explains things. Um, I can't think of any other designers specifically, but I will share with you guys one of my favorite artists, Gustav Klimt. Um, I'm very, very inspired by his work and the depth and meaning to some of these pictures. I'm going to share just a few of my favorites. To go with that question, what does that say about my craft, the things that I like to craft? I think that these things say that I like intricate work, um, intricate, detailed, passion driven work. That's, if anything, that's what it says about my crafting. The 8th question for this tag: how does your personality affect or show up in your crafting? Well, I am creative and rebellious and bright and loud and loving and caring and giving. And I think that that shows up in almost everything that I create. Um, Here's a few more things, primarily yarn related, that I have created that were all passion driven. A couple of them for my daughters, and one. You have it. My crafty personality tag video complete. I hope that if you are so inspired as a content creator, please, if I have not tagged you, pick this tag up and let's see your video. I love learning about each of the individuals in this community. Um, I'm blessed to be surrounded by artists and creators throughout my life. Not only did I come from artists and creators, but I surrounded myself, my best friend of, and she's my soul sister, Sissy from another Missy, Kira. Here's actually a little bit of work The first piece is a photo I recreated of her and I. And second is a photo of her and I at the Holy Festival a few years ago. And then a couple pictures of her work. She inspires me. She is an artist worthy of note. She has been on stage in numerous occasions. In fact, she most recently was on stage as Magenta next to Lil Nell in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I remember her being the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland in high school. She's just fearless and beautiful, and she inspires me in all that she does and all that she is. My husband and my mother-in-law as musicians and artists. My mother-in-law is the same as I am. She is a found item creator. She often has new creations to share when we go to visit. And girls, you're really distracting. Can you go in, please? Just another minute. Yeah. Squirrels. Good thing it's the end of the video, huh? So yeah. Oh yeah. In my 20s, I dated a tattoo artist. My cousin married a tattoo artist. I hung out with what I called whiskey poets, slam poets, for many years. And then several rounds of musicians through the years and other creators. I've been incredibly blessed to have creative people around me throughout my life. And I'm grateful to have found this fiber community here on YouTube and to be able to share in all of the creations, all of the things that we will do together here. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and in this video, I am tagging a few people down below. Please do your videos. If you have any more questions for me, write them in the comments. I will be happy to answer anything. I'm pretty much an open book. And make sure that you are subscribed so we can stay in touch and continue to grow and create together. Like the video for me because it helps. And get out there and take care of yourselves. Create and love and live because it's all happening. I love you guys, and I will talk to you soon.